Hello again, this is Rodrigo Uribe, your Principles and Practice of Clinical Research classmate. This time we're going to talk about integrity in research, authorship, philosophy, and ethics. We're going to cover the goals and the integrity in clinical research. Also, regarding authorship, we're going to talk about the criteria to accomplish the merit of being an author. Also, who's first, who's last, and why, the order of authorship in a manuscript, the ethical concerns to be aware of when authorship is being disclosed, and we will go back to basics in terms of philosophy, speaking about human nature and its ambitions regarding conflicts of interest. Finally, we're going to cover current and future challenges in research integrity. About the goals and the integrity in clinical research. I'm not sure who said this, whether it was Socrates or Jesus or some other philosopher. They were all completely right. Veritas liberavit vos, which means truth will make us free. Trust and credibility are the basis and expectancies of clinical research for the sake of humanity. The more we adhere to objectiveness, the higher standard of research to find the answers to our questions. Honesty, accuracy, objectivity, verifiable methods, and responsibility are the basis of research integrity. A published scientific article was first an idea of a question to be answered. A research study design was then planned, executed, results were analyzed and interpreted in order to conclude remarkable answers in specific field of knowledge and field of scientific research. According to the International Committee of Medical Journal Editors, there are 4 criteria to accomplish in order to be considered an author in any given clinical research quest when executing a protocol that shall be reported as a published manuscript proposal. The first criteria is to contribute to research process, study design and main concept or data acquisition, analysis, interpretation of findings. And the second concept or criteria is to work on drafting or reviewing scientific manuscript with intellectual contribution. And the third is final approval of the manuscript's version to be published. Finally, the fourth criteria is the responsibility and accountability in accuracy and integrity of published manuscript. Ideally speaking, according to the ethics of research, every single name of authors that are written in a published manuscript must accomplish these 4 criteria in order to be by ethics and by merits authors of this scientific research article. Now, Professor Fregni is right about this reflection. Scientists are, in a sense, quite similar to artists, as some are known for having an overinflated ego. So in terms of authorship for a manuscript, who comes first, whose name is in the middle, and who's at last? More importantly, what does the order of the names mean or represent according to clinical research? Some of the requirements and responsibilities of co-authors according to the author category will be described. The first author ideally performs the bulk of the experimental work. Meanwhile, the senior author typically is the last person in an authorship list, and he or she tends to direct, oversee, and guarantee the authenticity of the work. He takes full responsibility for the scientific accuracy. A corresponding author, it typically is assumed by either the first or the senior author, and his responsibility is to communicate with editors and readers, provide specific information on the contributions of all authors to the paper. He ensures that all authors are aware and approve the submission of the manuscript. What about the middle contributing authors? their contributions do not rise to those of the first or senior author. They do reflect their relative contributions to the paper, and all of the authors, including first, senior, corresponding, and middle contributing author, they should all fulfill the ICMJE authorship criteria. Unfortunately, not everything is bright and shiny. In fact, there are plenty of authorship misconducts in clinical research when it comes to disclose the authors of a scientific manuscript. Fortunately, these are some of the very well identified unethical conducts when it comes to authorship, considered as authorship abuse. Some of the types of authorship abuse are coercion authorship, which is the use of intimidation tactics to gain authorship; honorary guest or gift authorship, which is when authorship is awarded out of respect, friendship, in an attempt to curry favor or to give a paper to a greater sense of legitimacy, as in to give the paper or put the name of one of the most renowned researchers in order to attract readers within that manuscript. Mutual support authorship, which is an agreement by two or more investigators to place their names on each other's papers to give the appearance of higher productivity within their clinical research career. Duplication authorship is basically publishing the same work in multiple journals. Ghost authorship is when papers are written by individuals who are not included neither in the authors or in the acknowledgements. Denial of authorship is when the publication of work is carried out by others without providing them credit of the work. It's a form of plagiarism, and therefore it's a scientific misconduct. So what can we do? How to address their priority and get back on track regarding the goals and sense of scientific research as a priority, taking to the side the mere individual interests in research? I will be brief, but certainly I need the help of our friends the philosophers, whom were able to portray the concepts of goodness, greed, corruption, and ambitions in human nature. William Golding, English writer and philosopher who was awarded with the Nobel Prize in Literature in 1983, he wrote his masterpiece, Lord of the Flies, an exquisite novel where a group of kids were isolated in an island due to a flight accident. Along the novel, a series of events and characters begin to express their innermost instinctive traits of human beings in the sake of survival, power, and selfishness overall. This novel has been deeply analyzed regarding the nature of human beings. Like Jean-Jacques Rousseau depicted, is there goodness, love, and virtue in humans, which then is corrupted by society's standards and expectations? Or are we merely a walking bag of bones, flesh, and vicious predators, seeking only our convictions and desires, as the English philosopher Thomas Hobbes said? Can we all get along without the transgression of the liberties of others? Who's there to regulate order in between individuals that inevitably tend to socialize and create groups for common purposes? Well, fortunately, later on, John Locke, an English philosopher, depicted that there must be a talented and reasonable group of humans to assess, guide, and promote order for the sake of the sane relationship among humans, in order to promote the free will for everybody. But what if this conveys differences in the original idea and priorities for the collective, and privileged standing points of authority begin to be influenced by power and smaller groups' interests? Then came John Rawls, an American philosopher whom considered John Locke's idea was conceivable and fruitful as long as there exists ignorance of power or authority in the reasonable humans that guide the order of peaceful and collective interaction. He refers to the so-called veil of ignorance, which, in a blinding manner, speaking about research, may be the best way to assess and accomplish the value of institutions, where no conception of privilege or privation was possible in the minds of individuals that formed these institutions. He said the best way to assess the value of social institutions is to imagine their absence, as in blinding. This brief passage among the books and theories of politics and the nature of humans' ambitions made me not only ponder regarding the conflicts of interest, but also on the importance of blinding, considering the last philosopher's hypothetical scenario of a government collective with a veil of ignorance to pursue unbiased practices in society. Regarding the subject of conflict of interests, it is a vast subject that requires awareness, unbiased evaluation, and education within promotion of resources and motivational incentives in order to be avoided. Let us learn from the dispute among Hobbes and Rousseau, whether human is corruptible or was born corruptible. Either way, let's be like John Locke and John Rawls, to believe in a freedom that is regulated by scientific purpose as a priority, where blinding may avoid the privilege and the bias in our scientific community of clinical research. Some of the current and future challenges in clinical research integrity are to form official and former research committees along with ethical committees. The awareness and education and promotion of ethics in clinical research, not only in the university degree, but also in basics as high school or middle school. Prior agreement and disclosure of authorship before starting a new clinical research project. Honesty, responsibility, and reproducibility in clinical research above all. To form government and private regulators of research integrity and good clinical practices. And finally, to achieve the inclusive and equity scenarios for clinical research. Well, this is it for today, and let me know what you think about this short video, and thank you very much for watching. If you scan this QR code, you'll get to see a list of 12 women writers who wrote under male pseudonyms, talking about my last point of inclusive and equity within clinical research. I think you will be amazed by who were involved in this activity, where the names of women were not as attractive in terms of art, in terms of literature, and by all means, it's also a challenge that we are still facing in scientific literature and clinical research. Thank you very much. This is Rodrigo Uribe, and please let me know what you think about this video. Ciao.